any good education is supposed to make you believe that you can do anything. It's that element of possibility which it enables for you. Ki if I put my heart and mind into something, I can achieve. Doing an MBA abroad is much more fulfilling materially. Like if you want to be rich, किसी चीज को अगर पूरी शिद्दत से चाहो ना, the universe gets it to you. Makes you learn some things which you might not otherwise learn, or maybe you will learn in a longer period of time. Starting up is something that you're thinking about. Probably India is the place to be for the next decade.
Hi everyone. I know it's been long since I last posted a YouTube video, but here I am back with an amazing podcast. Our guest for today is Paritosh Sharma, a second-year MBA student at IIM Bangalore. The both of us have two very important things in common. Our MBA college, of course, and the place where we first started working, Tata Steel. He's someone I've always enjoyed talking to on campus. And I thought, why not bring our intellectual conversations on screen? In today's conversation, we'll cover topics like his BITS Pilani days, his time at Tata Steel, how he prepared and aced CAT, his time at IIM Bangalore till now, his internship at BCG, and what are his plans for the exchange term. We'll also cover GMAT versus CAT and a foreign MBA versus an Indian MBA. Because at the same time, when he's doing his MBA from IIM Bangalore, his own sister is pursuing an MBA from a very prestigious Ivy League US college. I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Let's get started. Hi Paritosh. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. So for context, I've already introduced you, but for the audience, I would love to begin with your childhood because it's very important to set context as to where you come from, if you were very good at school from the beginning, or how was the environment at home? Were you like pushed to go and study hard, or how was it? So begin with your childhood. Where did you grow up? And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Sure. Thanks Riya for having me. If I start from my very childhood, I was born in a place called Bulandshahr in Uttar Pradesh. And ours is a very typical middle class family. Mother is a housewife. My father works as an engineer. And I have an elder sister who's 4 years elder to me. So a lot of what you were saying about being pushed to study hard almost came organically. It's not that there was any restriction in the kinds of things we participated in, but certainly academics was something which was prioritized, like most Indian households. I was in my third standard in 2008 when I moved to Aurangabad in Maharashtra, and that's where most of my upbringing, I would say the years that matter the most, happened. I did my schooling in the ICSE board, gave my 10th and then switched to the state board for 11th and 12th, Maharashtra State Board. Was in Aurangabad itself. During 11th and 12th, I prepared for JEE, like any
How did that happen? I'm sure you got very good marks in your 10th ICSE boards. And then it was, again, very instinctive ki acha marks aaye hai, to definitely he'll take science, or was there any thought there?
So I'll tell you, there were certain options at hand, of course. Arts was something that I was not very keen on doing because I had heard various stories about the employability and the opportunities that will come later on. Of course, quite a few of those now I understand it's not true, but arts was out of picture. Commerce was something which I looked at for quite some time, but did not get a lot of good information about it in my family and my friends. Most of them were not keen on doing commerce, and I also did not have a lot of information. But I had this information about the medical stream and the engineering stream. And out of those, I felt that engineering provides a wider range of options to choose from, and in a long term, I think it would be much better to do engineering vis-a-vis medical, because that is a longer investment in your education and kind of narrows you down to
a very specific specialization. Yes.
Now, of course, quite a bit of that is also untrue. Now I understand medical also is very wide and you can do a plethora of things. You can switch to management from medical. A lot of people have been doing it these days. But that was the thought behind pursuing engineering. I would say it's more of elimination than anything else. At that point of time, did not know if engineering would be the right bet, but naturally followed from
And how much do you think your sister's education played a role? Because I asked this question because I'm the elder of the two. And I know that because I did engineering, For my brother, it was almost automatic. So was that also a factor?
Similar, yeah. I think my sister, who's also an engineer, she did her electronics and communication engineering. So for me, I saw the curriculum very closely, and I felt that that is the kind of personality it creates is something I would want. So, and it gives you a lot of leeway. Engineering is, as you make
Opens
it,
up so many
you can
doors
decide
for you.
how you're going to plan your engineering, unlike many other degrees. So I feel engineering is something, if you're confused, do engineering is what I would say.
Okay, so yeah, you've taken maths and science in your class 10th. How were those 2 dreadful years of JE prep? Were they dreadful or you enjoyed?
So I'll tell you, not so much, honestly. I joined the local coaching in Aurangabad. And for me, I was also interested in joining the NDA.
Okay.
That is what happened during that time. Initially, of course, I didn't tell at my home. I don't know why. It's not that my parents were strict or anything. I just felt it's not a good idea to tell them initially, and they would not be very happy with it. Therefore, I did not. So I was kind of doing that by the side, trying to keep myself physically fit, trying to prepare for the entrance that happens, the SSB interviews that happen. So in my mind, somewhere I felt the NDA is the primary thing.
Okay.
And this coaching
JE
I'm doing just for the sake
It's
of
for your
it
parents, because
keeps everyone happy. Plus, if I don't get in, I'll have something to fall back to. So that was the idea. But I mean, as luck would have it, I got a chance to go at both the places, touch the NDA, came out of it, joined BITS. So that
Can you elaborate? How did it happen? You passed the exam?
Sure. So what happened was, I of course told my parents in the later part of my
I've given my
12th
interviews,
standard.
I've gotten selected.
No, not really. Just before that, because we had to go somewhere to give these
SSB
interviews. After that process was done, it was after the mains that the medical tests for NDA happen. So after you have made it, there are medical tests that happen. And in the medical test that took place for me at Bangalore, I was rejected on 2 grounds. One was being underweight, and naturally, and the second was my sitting height. So my first preference for the NDA was the Air Force.
Okay.
And there, according to the specifications of the aircrafts, you have a certain maximum limit on your sitting height.
And you crossed that upper limit.
Yeah, I was, crossing that limit by 2 millimeters. So those were the 2 reasons of rejection. But there's a process in the selection which says that you can apply for an appeal. So I appealed for the reassessment, and that for me happened in Delhi. Couldn't think of anything else. What I did was, I still remember a day before I was assessed, I did not sleep for a couple of days before that. Now the very stupid reason, but
research that you've done for this.
Yeah, so I tried to search. What happens is your spine is, when you're erect, your spine is compressed relatively. When you sleep, it gets relaxed and your height overall increases by a few millimeters. So if you do not sleep, for instance, like you remain erect, there's a likelihood that that will be
it'll be compressed for a short period of time.
Shortest height that you can ever have. So a group captain assessed me. He was looking at the height and he was confused. How did this height decrease? How can a height decrease?
So actually when it measured, it was 2
millimeters.
It was
dot 96. So that's what it was supposed to be. And he was confused. But then that was what it was. So he noted it down and gave me the clearance, and that's how I got in. Now the second part of your question about how did I come out of NDA then?
Yeah.
So I did join
parallelly, the NDA. You would have given JEE mains advance, the exam for your BITS exam.
yes.
The background mein you had given all of them.
वो चल रहा था. Probably I was not getting the top branches in the top IITs.
So you had cleared advance also?
Yeah, all that was okay. But I was not getting the best branches in the best IITs. I was getting maybe not so sought after branches.
Branch and campus.
Yeah, so that was something I had to decide, or there was BITS that I could go to. So that was that. But then this happened.
You cleared these 2 roadblocks that were in front.
So I was given the offer letter for the NDA, rank 5, and into the academy. Yeah, Air Force. So I went into the academy. Now I mean, of course, love that place. It was perhaps one of the best days of my life so far. Because that, honestly, Ria, that's one thing that I genuinely wanted in life. Out of a lot of things that I've done so far, quite a few are things that happened. I mean, it's not that I planned for them. This was something that I really, really wanted. And it happened. I'm very happy for it. And as they say, I don't know if I'm stretching this answer a bit too long, but let me still say this. किसी चीज को अगर पूरी शिद्दत से चाहो ना, the universe gets it to you.
Oh my
So
God. Amen
a lot
to
of
that.
it's true because a lot of things happened that were not in line with me getting into the NDA. But because it was supposed to happen, it did happen.
And you put in the effort to make it happen.
I mean,
every possible
everybody
thing
does,
that you
but
could do.
a lot of people put efforts, but maybe, I don't know, I just wanted it too badly. As destiny would have it, I was not supposed to be there. So I see it in a way कि God might have seen कि तुझे चाहिए, ले, ठीक है, taste it.
Okay.
But then this is not for you. Ultimately, I know the bigger
So
plan.
you were someone who did not like the taste, or like how?
No,
Yeah,
not
tell
really.
me
So,
how it
so
happened.
of course, the life there was different. I left the academy on two basic grounds, I would say. One of it was that I didn't know that there are regular medical tests. It's not that when you get in, you are
okay.
there. So my biggest charm, or so to say, the drive to join the NDA was to fly the fighter jets. Sukhoi was the aircraft for me, if at all I would have gotten the chance to fly. I came to know that this sitting height requirement is very strict for
Sukhoi.
For any fighter jet, basically.
Okay.
So if I violate that, which I will, I'll be given some other aircraft, and this is what I did not know earlier when I joined.
Okay.
And second was that the kind of environment that was there in the academy, it's brilliant for the kind of job it is, but in the very long run, I sort of was not able to make peace with if this is what I want to do full time. It's something that makes your career very narrow. When you are in the defense, of course, it provides you a lot of opportunity. It's a family, it's a environment that you're set in, and it kind of narrows down your way to think about things. And I sensed this right when I was in the academy initial days.
How many months or weeks?
So it's a couple of months that I was there, but I mean, time was ticking, and also.
And you were processing all this behind. Do I want to stay? I'm not.
Yeah,
like
all of that was happening, and
even the JE thing would be like
exactly.
the dates would close.
Exactly.
Once the
so the dates were coming in. So those dates would end. I had to make a decision very quick. So, and after talking to a lot of people in the academy also, nobody says it on the face, but people find it hard. In the hindsight, of course, they see the value of it. But I was not sure if in the long run, that is the best thing to do, to stay there. And I would not get to fly the jets probably. So that's what made it was one of the toughest decisions for me so far. But I think whatever happens for good. I resigned, and a couple of days later, I was in BITS. Okay. And that was like one of the most weirdest days of my life, I would say. The clock tower at BITS resembles very closely to the Manoj Pandey block at NDA.
And you were remembering, this is the life that I was living 2 days ago, and what a transition it
almost
has been.
Everyone told me that it's not a good decision, because NDA is probably the best place to be when you're thinking of defense. That's a very standard track you can have for being the chief of the staff in the Army, Navy, Air Force, or in those rungs, basically. So that's a very lucrative career altogether. Plus, you're serving the nation. It's a very noble.
And more than anything, it was your dream.
True.
So that's above everything else.
True. So, and it was a dream for the same reason, to be able to do something for the people that rely on you, the people who look up to you. That was that. Everybody was rejoicing. I still remember the first day. Everyone was very happy. I was not very happy. So my mom, everybody was clicking pictures around. I was not very happy, honestly. But then, of course, I took some time to understand that this is going to be my life. And of course, nobody else did it for me. It was my decision. So I kind of picked myself up, and BITS altogether has been a great experience. So I would say it was not a bad decision, and Of course, aspects of it I might regret at some point or the other. But all in all, I feel I'm much more open-minded now, much more aware of how things work and how the real world functions, not just from a defense point of view, but also from an overall well-being of the society.
Wow, wow. I did not know this huge part about your life, and I'm so glad you shared it.
I
Your
generally
toughest
do not talk
decision.
about it much because then it's gone, it's closed chapter of my life.
Understood.
So, but still.
But you have the acceptance now that it was a conscious decision, and you're not doing bad. You're doing relatively like very good. So
Okay, kya hi hai? It's all-
two very good options. You chose one of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So now coming to your years at BITS, I get a lot of questions about what we can do to maximize our output from an engineering college or any undergraduate college for that matter. So what did you learn there? How did you maximize your time there? And also if you could touch upon how BTech in general helps later in CAT. Yeah.
Sure. So I'll begin, I would say, this answer with a very basic definition of what, in my opinion, education is supposed to do. Right? A good education, of course, it has a sociological angle. It's supposed to prepare you to contribute to a societal structure and makes you
some
ready
output.
for a role, to an output, right? As you said. But on a more personal psychological level, it's supposed to, any good education is supposed to make you believe that you can do anything. It's that element of possibility which it enables for you. Ki, if I put my heart and mind into something, I can achieve it. And if an educational institute is not able to instill that in its students, I feel it's failing big time. What I think, coming to your question about BITS, BITS is one such institution that focuses very heavily on enabling that feeling
of
in the
hope,
students.
of opportunity.
And that, true. And that starts with the way the curriculum is structured. We have 0% attendance at BITS. So
I've heard of that.
yeah. So some people, of course, do not make the best use of it. But if you think about it, it's such a big freedom that the institute provides. You can miss all your lectures if you want, if you think that you have something better to do. So it gives you that responsibility right on day one. It treats you like an adult right on day one, that you have the minds and the understandings to make the decision for yourself. Second is also about the way the internship program at BITS is structured. They have a 6-month-long compulsory sort of
At
immersion.
the end of the 4th year, or
It's in the 4th year.
Okay.
Or you can do a thesis instead of that also. There's an option. But in your 4th year, you can choose to one semester of
Either
the two.
term 7 or term 8.
You can choose to do
An
immersion,
6-month
internship, and which is at world-class institutions and some of the best MNCs and Indian companies that come for that process. So I think that practical exposure right in your engineering days prepares you for the corporate world. And perhaps that is one of the reasons I've seen BITSians are generally good at communication. They're good at reasoning, problem solving in a corporate setup. I'm not saying that BITSians are better or worse than anyone, but I've generally
that makes
seen
a difference. 6 months
does
of
make a
corporate exposure, right? Like as a student.
It does. And most of the work that is there at BITS is run by students to a large extent. And there's little to no administrative influence on a lot of student activities that happen. Except, of course, academics, they have to be involved. But other than that, there's very little involved. So I think that also provides you that opportunity to give that
responsibility, accountability,
take that
experience of all of this.
True. So if I were to put it simply, from an engineering setup environment, one thing that anyone should learn is to prioritize what they really want, because a lot of things happen at the same time and you can't do it all. Let's be clear.
Same thing for MBA also, but
True.
we'll come to that later.
Always. So you have to think of what matters the most to you and does it align with the long-term goal that you have set for yourself? And if it does, then how much of your time you are willing to ration
to each
of those activities. So that is one thing that I think anyone involved in this curriculum should focus on. Second thing I feel is to ask the right questions. Engineering has definite answers for the most part, but the real world is different. And that's why we have courses like humanities coming up in the engineering curriculum. We have a lot of management style courses being taught in engineering colleges, because engineering is set into a social context. So if you're able to ask the right questions and understand that context in which your solution is being implemented, that is something you should take away from an engineering college that helps you later in your career overall. Because if I understand it correctly, any business is supposed to solve something or make something better for someone out there. It's a very basic definition of any business. So if you're able to think through about how your solution is fitting
in the society at large,
right, that is where the business success of your venture would come in. Be it any small or large company, if you miss that context, very high likelihood that it's going to be not a very long journey that you will have with the venture. I would say something to be wary of, because I need to put that also. There are a lot of times where we get carried away with the kind of opportunities we have. We might think something is good for us and we pursue it through and through. And then that thing doesn't work out and we are dejected. So it's very important to understand that it's okay to fail at that thing and then pivot to some other thing. And second thing is, when you're trying something, when you're at it, try to completely give yourself to that idea.
Yeah, don't do it half-heartedly.
Don't do it half-heartedly.
वो भी कर रहे हैं, आधा मन कहीं और भी है, and neither you're able to give 100% to this, nor are you pursuing the other thing that you have in mind.
Correct. It's always better to completely put yourself into the process and realize that it was not worth it, rather than trying 5 things at a time and not
doing good
at any of these. And you can't then make a decision also ki if any of these were actually working for you, because you did not give it your best shot. So I think that is what I would take from my time at BITS.
So where did you do your 6-month internship, and then how did Tata Steel come at the end of your BITS journey?
Sure. So I did my internship at a company called Upgrad. It's one of the e-learning edtech platforms. Yes. And when I was there, we launched our international MBA program. So you might have seen a lot of ads.
I have seen that, Upgrad.
Right. So we had that flagship program of the international MBA, which we launched. And I did, of course, get an offer there. But I also sat for the final placements at my college. And that's when Tata Steel came in as one of the first companies, and I got in. So the idea to join Tata Steel apparently was, honestly, I liked my work at Upgrad, but I felt that a more structured, a more established organization is what I'm looking for at this point of time in my career. Because I felt that a lot of times it's very important to learn from something that is already established and try to hone your skills in such a structure and implement it somewhere.
Come to
if at all you do. Yeah. So that was the idea. And of course, I did not work in a setup that was more mechanical. Mechanical was my degree, by the way, at BITS.
And you enjoyed mechanical engineering?
Yeah. I mean, see, I was not the most brilliant student in mechanical, and I was doing okay, I would say. But it's not that I did not find it interesting. Some of the topics, of course, in mechanical, I was very passionate about. And honestly, Tata Steel allowed me that opportunity to apply. And the role provided by Tata Steel was a techno-managerial one. So you would do some technical stuff, but quite a part of it was also managerial.
Yeah, people handling, team handling, like strategy planning.
And that was in a very crude fashion, in the sense that, see, when you are on a shop floor, when you are in an organization that deals directly with shop floor
production.
Yes. So then there's no time for fluff, is what I mean. Either you have the thing sorted or you don't.
Or there's a breakdown.
Or there's a problem, yes. So, and the problems are often very severe. So, I think that is what added a lot of value to my experience at Tata Steel. I mean, my learnings from the experience at Tata Steel, because it had to be correct and it had to be simplified to the extent that anyone from the operator level till the VP level can understand it. So the kind of stakeholder management I learned at Tata Steel is probably something I would not trade for anything else. It was one of the best times. Although now in the hindsight, I can say this, when I was sitting for the placements, the only thought was to try to implement my mechanical skills somewhere, and because Tata Steel was an established brand, and it felt like I would learn a lot in terms of just being in the system for that. But a lot of these nuances about managing people, about how to get things done, about even the ethics and the societal part of it, which I think Tata Steel has very strong culture around it, is something I did not have in mind at that point of time. But I think it has played a big part in shaping of what I am today.
Coming to a question that I think about often personally, because I also landed up at Tata Steel. Do you think that if you had gone into maybe an analytics role or in any way tech role, do you think at the end you would not be doing an MBA now if your primary role after your undergrad was very good?
Okay, I didn't think about it all that much, but I feel it would have depended on the kind of projects that I would have worked on. But largely, the value of an MBA does not get diminished by the sheer kind of opportunity that you're working on. The value of MBA still exists. And you learn a lot in an MBA, even if you're in a role like consulting, analytics, tech, anything for that matter. The kind of learnings that you'll take out of an MBA will be different, because the skills that you learn at operation, the role at Tata Steel will be different from what you learn in a MBB. So I would say ki I can't comment on if I would have done the MBA after 2 years of my work ex or later. I'm not very sure, but I certainly feel now I can say this because I am in an MBA curriculum, that value add would have certainly been there. Would have made that decision or not is something I don't think I can even predict, because that would have depended on the kind of role that I was in. But MBA certainly is valuable. To do or not to do it is a more personal decision. It certainly expedites your career progress. It makes you learn some things which you might not otherwise learn, or maybe you will learn in a longer period of time. So it has value for sure, if that's your question.
Yeah, kind of. Because I hear people asking me that people who've continued in tech after BTech are almost making the same as someone who's given 2 years of their life, prepared so hard for CAT, and have such a big economic burden. And starting MBA salaries are pretty much the same. So would you have done an MBA if you had joined tech? So that's the question I get very often.
True.
That was the...
True. I'll just add to that perhaps. So see, any business that you run, we talked about what business is supposed to do at a very ideal, very basic level. Now, if to do that were that straightforward, everyone would have opened startups and everyone would have been successful. The reason why we see the startups not succeeding, or the companies not able to launch various products, maybe not being able to create the impact that they envision when they start off a project, is because it's messy. What an MBA teaches you is to think structurally, think logically about that mess. All the topics that we learn in an MBA are supposed to put structure or some sort of system to the way you solve for things in the real life. So I wouldn't say that an MBA teaches you something out of the world and it is something that you cannot learn on your own. But would you, is the question. It's a thing that I often wondered, even before doing an MBA. I thought about it, like, would doing an MBA be of value? But now I can say it does have some value. The kind of curriculum we go through, it crystallizes the learnings that people have had from their experiences in the past, the cases that we do, the kind of research work that we go through. It's something that makes your task easier when you are in a corporate job. So I would say anyone thinking only about the salary as being the value add of an MBA is largely mistaken. Salary is certainly something that is important for sure. People do it mainly for the salary, I would say. But that is one of many things that you get out of an MBA, even if you don't join it for those reasons. You certainly see a change in your personality, in the way you think about things, in the way you solve problems. The nuance that you get in your thinking is certainly something I would say worth doing an MBA for.
I have my answer. So coming back to your journey, you joined Tata Steel. The first year is the management training period. It's more fun than actual work. But then now that after the first year, you're on a shop floor, like you said, actually making an impact. There's like the processing, the production that's dependent on you. If anything goes wrong, you are held accountable, and very rightly so. And amidst all this, how did the thought of giving CAT or an MBA either? I know you've also considered an international MBA. So how did all this come in the picture while on the shop floor?
Right. So my time was very good at Tata Steel, I'll be very honest. The superiors that I had, my senior manager, the heads, the chiefs in my department, were all very, very supportive. So it was not that there was stress that typically people face on the shop floor in an operations role. For me, it was more about learning the best I can. And that was the approach I took the job with. But gradually, I came to realize that it's a narrower role than what I would have expected, or maybe something that I would have wanted out of a long-term career into a company like Tata Steel. It's not that the switches internally are not possible. It's not that the avenues wouldn't have opened up for me, but it would have taken some time. So a way to expedite that was an MBA. And when I was thinking about doing an MBA, it's not something that I realized only after getting at Tata Steel. The thought of doing an MBA was somewhere lingering still
from
when I
your
was
days.
when I was at BITS. I remember I gave my GMAT for the YLP program of ISB because that's what happens in your final year, and I happened to apply for it and then gave the GMAT. So it was back then that I had
thought
that
it already.
कि कर सकते हैं. And YLP, the good thing is you can take
Defer.
your call later, you can defer, and in fact that's what I did. After the second year got completed and I was supposed to join the YLP program, I deferred it for another year, thinking that I would apply to colleges abroad in this year, and probably something will work out. If it doesn't, ISB is something I would be going. But fortunately or unfortunately, I also gave CAT that year. So
you like सारे options देख लेता हूँ,
मतलब
सारे
करना है
बटोर
तो-
लेता हूँ, फिर I'll choose what do I want of them.
Landed me into a weird dilemma because when I converted IIM Bangalore, option was to choose Bangalore or apply abroad the following year and take ISB. And that was not an easy call to make because at both these places, I mean, the trade-offs are there, but the ROI is also very good. A decision to make primary decision was an MBA abroad or in India. Because if it's in India, my logic was to do it now at IIM Bangalore because it gives you a slightly more relaxed timeline of 2 years.
Plus a little bit better brand value. I'm not comparing.
I'm not sure, but I think both of the colleges are good. But of course, because I'm from IIM Bangalore, I would say IIM Bangalore is a tad bit better. But no, I'm just kidding. Both of these colleges are doing amazing. And ISB has its own curriculum, own way of leading the program.
Own reasons why it is so.
Yes, and I see very valid reasons for it, honestly. In my second year at an MBA, I can understand why ISB is structured in 1 year. Honestly, most of the core concepts, even at IIM Bangalore, you would agree, are covered in the first year.
Yes.
Second year is mostly electives. Like if you want, it's an a la carte. If you want to specialize in a particular
customize your MBA,
yes.
take more subjects of this vertical, go ahead.
So that you do in your second year at IIM Bangalore. But ISB, it's a amazing curriculum in its own right. But that was the logic that MBA will. In an IIM Bangalore, of course, you have a chance to try your internship and see if it works out. Because for me, my only job experience before this was Tata Steel, and I did not know of other fields. So, of course, I wanted to try consulting, but what if I don't like it? ISB is only one shot at placements and you're done.
Finals, you get in, and then after getting the full-time role, you figure out are you liking it or
so
not.
It's easier when you try it out first and then see for yourself and switch later in the final placements if you would like. So that was the idea. All of those reasons, and of course I had some friends in Bangalore and that certainly added weight to my decision. But the more important question coming back to whether MBA in India or abroad, and how I went about deciding about that was to think in a very long run fashion. A lot of people think of ROI, a lot of people talk about lifestyle being better there and all of that. And that is certainly correct. That is true that the ROIs are in some ways in the short run better in India, in the long run better there. The lifestyle certainly is better there abroad. Let's be very clear and honest about it. But there are certain more nuanced aspects I would like to bring to your notice, and maybe through this to
To
others
the broader
watching.
audience's
Yeah.
notice, yes.
Because when you do an MBA abroad, the timeline is that you are some 24, 25 years. And
Because it needs minimum 3 to 4 years of work. So
I mean,
you should have accumulated.
there's no
that.
rule, but typically at least
Yeah.
3-4 years you would do before you go to an MBA abroad. And by that time, you're 24, 25 at least. You do your MBA, most of us would take a loan for it or take part of the tuition as loan. So when you have to repay that loan, that's when you start earning practically. And that would take 2 years of your MBA plus some 3-4 years at least of your repayments for that loan.
Yes.
And what's your age by then? It's 31, 32. That's the time your parents are getting old. That's also the time you would think of getting married. An important decision would also then be, where do you want your child to be brought up? Would it be New York City or would it be New Delhi? It's a very, very important question because the cultures are very different at both these places. And someone, of course, has to take care of your parents. So it's a very long run decision that you have to take. And of course, it has to align with your better half also. It has to align with the decisions which the other person is willing to make for their career.
Absolutely.
So thinking of all of this, I felt that, and my sister is also doing an MBA.
Yeah, we would want to cover the topic. So parallelly, when you were deciding to get into IIM Bangalore, your sister decided to go for an MBA abroad. Can you just give us a brief of that? Like,
sure.
She had more work ex.
Right. So she had 6 years of work ex, as I said. She was 4 years elder to me. So she worked for 6 years with a global consulting firm here in India itself. She was in Pune. And she got through TUC, and that's where she is now doing her MBA. So the decision was for one of us to stay here, and I therefore took IIM Bangalore, considering all the factors that we
you
talked
just
about.
mentioned. Yes.
And I feel overall it is a much balanced situation for a family like us, because both of us going abroad would have been a big financial thing also, and one of us staying here is, I feel, much better proposition for the stability of the family. But that being said, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But as of now, I feel I'm happy with the decision that I made, more or less. And of course, the kind of jobs that you get out of an MBA are different from
for India
and
US.
an MBA in the US or Europe, wherever. Because it's basically because the companies have different kind of offices in India. India is a different market.
Absolutely.
And US is a very different market. The amount of money that the companies are willing to pay, the amount of resources that you need to get something done, the amount of the expertise that you have in a certain market also determines the kind of money that you put into that market. So a lot of these companies have expertise in these Western markets, and they have recently started to come in the last decade or so in the Indian markets. So the kind of remuneration, the kind of exposure that you get differs in both. But that's not to say that the roles in India are any worse. It's just to say that it's a market that will mature over time.
And right now we are not there to get a salary that's at par even in the same company.
I would say it will never be on par. Let's be honest about it. At least in the next 25-30 years, that's not going to be the case. But I mean, there's of course theories that you can think of. Purchasing power parity wise, we are much better, and we get a vada pav much cheaper than a hamburger there. So whatever it is, the point is, overall, if you have a decent job in India versus a decent job there, you're okay at both these places. And this is a conversation that I had at that point of time with one of my seniors from college. And he told me, ki yaar, what do you need the money for, honestly? You need it for your family. If you want your kids to learn at the best colleges, if you want your family to go on international trips twice a year, if you want to cover for your medical expenses, your family's well-being, you can do that even when you are an IIM Bangalore alum. So it's all right. The things that you need the money for, you will always have enough money. So that was the decision then to go for IIM Bangalore.
I absolutely understood all the personal context, and thank you for bringing it, because more than anything, it comes down to a personal decision to your environment, to your surroundings. So thank you for covering all that. But let's say there's someone who does not have these family obligations. They are free to venture out and decide for themselves without any other obligations. If an MBA from US makes more sense for them, or an MBA from a top Indian B school, how would you take that if you did
Sure.
not have these considerations that you just mentioned?
Sure. So first thing I would want, because my parents will also be watching this, there was no pressure at all. So when you're saying family considerations, it was not really that I had my parents tell me ki someone has to stay in. It was completely a personal decision, and I overall felt that IIM Bangalore would be good for me from a professional as well as personal point of view. So I mean, there was no pressure from the family. Let me be very
Got it.
clear about
Sure.
that. But that being said, to someone who's making a choice right now and has no such obligations or such considerations in their minds, I would say doing an MBA abroad is much more fulfilling materially. Like if you want to be rich, if you want to work into fancy,
Buy a car in the first year
yeah.
of your earning. I have
probably
seen
not
that.
do it in the first year, usme to loan hi chukega. But the point is, you will have a much better lifestyle, you will have a much better life overall if you do it from abroad. But there's another element to think about. Indian market is growing and it's maturing much faster than the Western markets, which are almost there. I mean, there's not a lot happening. In India, it's a lot of turmoil, and you see a lot of startups coming up. Starting up is something that you're thinking about. Probably India is the place to be for the next decade. If those are your considerations, and if you understand the Indian market well, probably stay in India. But if it's just the money, the salary, the prestige that you're going for, I would suggest go for an MBA abroad. Hands down, materially better proposition to it abroad.
So Paritosh, we have the full context of how you made the decision to actually give CAT and take up IIM Bangalore. But just one step before this, how did you prepare and while with a job?
Okay, so I'll be very honest. CAT was not really something, as I told you, CAT was not something on the radar all that much. The only reason I would say I gave CAT, two reasons I would say I gave CAT was, one of my best friends told me कि लिख दो, क्या पता हो जाए, तो दे के देख लो.
No harm in giving that.
Second was that we would get to go to Bhubaneswar.
For your interviews?
No, for the CAT.
Achha, okay, exam. Because you were in Kalinganagar.
I was in Kalinganagar. So Kalinganagar is a very remote place. The nearest town is 45 kilometers, Jajpur, and it's a very non-happening place, I would say. So we were excited कि हाँ एक weekend का at least outing हो जाएगा. So we went a day before and stayed in good hotels and tried to make the best experience of those 2 days that we had during our CAT exam. So that was the incentive, honestly. I did not particularly prepare as such for CAT as well.
Not even a month or...
Not really, yeah. The only thing that I did was I looked at a couple of mocks. So I took down the sample paper from a site online and tried to see how the questions are, more or less.
What's the level?
Yeah. So I think CAT as a paper is not a very difficult paper. It's just that it requires certain degree of accuracy in a limited time. If you had 8 hours to solve the same paper, I'm pretty sure almost everyone will get very, very high marks. So it's just about getting the question right in that amount of time.
And I'll also stop you there. It's not that easy. I think you are saying this because you have a very solid foundation of maths, English. I know people who struggle to reach that level of English, of maths, of reasoning. So I get where you're coming from, but I don't want you to openly say that.
Okay, but I would still say that if you had enough time, the maths that is covered is till your 10th standard. I think most of us know it very, very well. English could be tricky at times, but more or less if you spend enough time on the question, you will get it right. DILR also similar logic. It's basic logic. You just have to think it through. If the only thing in CAT is you cannot rethink
because you don't have
that much time. But that's what I mean. If you had enough time, a lot of people will score very good in CAT. But that's the idea, to have you take decisions in constrained time period, because CAT in some ways is a simulation of business world. What they're trying to test is the prompts are also like that. Although it's not exactly business knowledge that they can test because you are yet to learn that. But the kind of skill sets, the kind of traits they're trying to test it through that exam is exactly what you would need in a business environment. They're trying to test if we pick this guy up, this guy, girl, or them you pick up, will these be able to become future CEOs? So that is what they're exactly looking at. And I feel that is not very hard to do if you have some background work going into it. Of course, not recommended to give it just like that, but it's not very difficult to prep yourself for CAT is what I mean. If you have the right kind of mindset, if you decode what the examiner is trying to test, it's not very difficult as an exam. There are much more difficult exams.
Provided you have a good foundation is what I'll repeat.
True. Of course. Okay.
Good foundation of maths and English and logical reasoning.
Yes.
So yeah, very limited preparation, went there, gave the exam, enjoyed your weekend in Bhubaneswar, back to work. And then once you got your percentile, how did you prepare for the interviews?
Right. So for the interviews, a part of the prep was already done because during my interviews with the ISB process, I had some points written for my undergrad and the time before that. The only thing that was additional about Tata Steel was supposed to be prepared. And that's what I did. I noted down certain questions that were most frequently asked and tried to prepare structured, pointed answers to those. I took some help from my seniors at BITS and my sister, and that's how I kind of prepped for it. Not a very full-fledged prep, I would say. That was 2-3 days before the interview that I did all this. But it certainly helped because I had some pointers in mind while going into the process. And I think the interview for Bangalore, at least I can say. So I interviewed for Bangalore and Calcutta.
All the calls that you had, and
I only applied for A, B, and C.
Okay.
And did not get it from A, got it from B and C. So B's, in fact, also for C, the interview was very conversational. It was
same for me.
Yeah, it was very chill. You did not have to think a lot. Even if you just honestly answered the question that they posed, I think anyone would have done a good job there.
You just have to show a decent level of self-reflection. You know what you're doing, what life decisions you've taken thus far, how well are you contributing at work. That was
anyone seeing this, I would say the advice would be to be yourself. Don't try to overdo stuff. Just whatever comes to your mind, speak truly, honestly, and I think that should be enough.
And make sure that you have your basics covered. You cannot be answering wrong things about your workplace or your...
Why would you? If you have done that stuff and if you are really at the helm of the affairs that you have quoted in your CV or you have written in your SOP, you would know that stuff. So
absolutely,
it's a given that you would talk good about those things.
So yeah, the results are out. Did you make both to B and C?
Yeah.
And then you chose B, and June 2023, you land up at IIM Bangalore. I'm sure it would have taken you some time to adjust and realize soon that there are so many things to try. Yeah, how did that adjustment happen, and when did you realize how can you maximize your output? What are your priorities that you want to maximize for at your time in IIM Bangalore?
True. So I think what you're saying is really, really pertinent because IIM Bangalore is a place where things happen very fast. I mean, the first week you are in and things explode. Like there are 10 things happening, there are deadlines. You have 2 hours to submit some assignment. You have 5 hours to do a PPT, and you have to get used to that rut very, very soon. And the things were hectic. But I think something that I gained from my time at BITS was something that helped me here. I would in fact bring up a couple of things, observations that I had. Number one is that while I was at BITS, we were immature to a large extent. We didn't know what we really wanted. It was more out of innocence that we did things in stupidity. Here, the stupidity is a conscious choice. At IIM Bangalore, like if you are being stupid, it's not something to blame the environment for. You should ideally know what you're here for. You are mature enough to make a decision for yourself. So that is one very clear difference in the thing that we want out of the curriculum. That was something that was very clear for IIM Bangalore, not so much for my
BITS.
time at BITS. I remember, so second thing, in fact, is I remember during my very first interactions at BITS, I came across a group. So the interaction in BITS happens with the seniors as groups at times. So it's not ragging, but it's interaction. And I happened to join a group of all the DPS RK Puram peeps.
Okay.
And I was, of course, I studied English medium. I knew English and all of that was okay. But there's my school level and then there was DPS RK Puram level. I was overwhelmed. I was like, यहाँ पे कैसे हो पाएगा मेरा? This is too much. This is overwhelming. Everybody is better than me. So that imposter syndrome really kicked in. But because that happened, I gradually realized in BITS कि ऐसा नहीं है. You can
they
catch
maybe
up with
just
stuff and
are very good in English or how
if
they
you
carry
you
themselves.
work on your weaknesses. That's the idea of a place where a lot of brilliant minds come. You learn from each other and you cover for each other's weaknesses and try to come at a bare minimum bar in all the things that matter.
Absolutely.
So that prepared me for an MBA कि हाँ imposter syndrome नहीं होना है यहाँ पे.
There might be some
Everybody
things I'm not
is
so great.
running a different race. Anand Ambani is starting where you'll probably reach very late or probably never reach. It's okay. It's his race. You don't have to compare. So that was very, very clear. And therefore, the approach that IIM Bangalore was that I'll try to learn as much as possible. Try to focus on things that will help me achieve what I want to achieve in the long run, will help me in my professional as well as personal life. And that is the approach I took. I tried to prioritize things based on that metrics that I have broadly in my mind. And ultimately, whatever adds value to my personality is what I take up. Something that is not aligned with those values, not aligned with those priorities, I tend to chuck. So that's what it has been.
And what have been your priorities? I know you've been very focused on academics. That explains a very, very high CGPA, getting the DML thing, a very good internship, and finally getting a PPO. So these are the things that I know from the surface that, oh my God, he's doing all these things right. But what is your actual priority list?
Yeah, to be honest, you're talking about ACADS. ACADS is not, you don't really have to prioritize ACADS alag se, is what I would say. If you just pay attention in your class, I would say more than half of the prep for exam is already done. This I think you would also second. Where a lot of people fail in not just IIM Bangalore, but anywhere in general, students fail is they do not take good notes. They probably do not pay a lot of attention in the classroom. And then when they try to study it on their own later,
night before the exam,
there's a gap. So things are not very clear. So I would say academics certainly was a priority, and there's a very important reason for it. You have your placements where ACADS matter, and otherwise, why would you pay so much to an institute? Because academics is the core offering of an MBA. The faculty that's teaching you is some of the best. They are some of the best in the country, in the world. So, I mean, why would you waste that money and not pay attention in the classes, not prioritize ACADS? So it is by default. Like if you value the kind of money and the time you're giving to an MBA, you better just focus in the class. So ACADS by default, I think you don't have to alag se prioritize it. If you're very conscious, very mindful of the money and the time that you are giving into this process, you will by default prioritize ACADS. But other than that, there are quite a few things which I feel I prioritized in my first year. Some of them were doing case comms. I did not do case comms before coming to IIM Bangalore. So some of them I picked up.
Did.
Right. So some of them I did. Of course, played a few sports. Yeah, that's probably about it. I was involved in some club departmental activities and all of that is of course something.
And even I think the summer internship would have been on your
Yeah, summer internship. Again, you can't escape it. So you have to.
And then you try your best to get the best shot at it. And academics is the way to
True. So, of course, the academics don't play so much of a role for your summer internship, but certainly for the final placements, those are very important. Yeah, that was the way to think about it. But as I come to my second year, of course, this priority has changed. So, case competitions and those things have taken a backseat. I would say this year, my motive is to prioritize my health and try to make sure that I'm going in a good shape as I join consulting because I know it's going to take a toll. So I'm trying to set up a routine for myself.
So, Paritosh, you mentioned so many things that you're taking care of, and anyone who's going to an MBA college has to take care of. But my question is, can anyone have it all, or there'll always be trade-offs that you will be missing out on something? Like, if you can give a personal example or what you've seen in your batchmates.
Sure. So, I mean, basic economics, you have limited resource, that's time. You need to make trade-offs. And that's the basic idea. You cannot have it all, and you need not have it all. As I said, when you walk into an MBA college, you come with a certain agenda in your mind for yourself, for the things that you want to learn. And your choices are determined by that agenda,
Yes.
largely. So the trade-offs are there, certainly. And you have to decide for yourself if those trade-offs are worth it. If you really feel that something needs to be done differently, you make a change in your structure, that structure of priority that you have in your mind, and execute differently. But the idea is that you should not be afraid to let go of something. FOMO is honestly not something you should be worried about all that much, because you cannot do it all. And it's okay. A lot of people in the world who are successful have focus on the work that they're doing. And the only way to do good quality work is to put yourself into the process for that work. So I would say trade-offs are certainly there. If I talk about myself, in my first year, I can be very honest, I did not get a lot of time to play, a lot of time to exercise, focus on my own habit of reading, which I developed during my time at Tata Steel. Those things got sacrificed because there were other more urgent things that were happening. But then gradually, these priorities also shifted. I started maintaining my priorities much better. I had put a urgent important structure for the to-dos, and I mean that's just one of the things that I do now. But try to use calendar more effectively. Try to look at what are the priorities for that span of time and execute basis that. So for now, currently, I would say health is something that is important to me. To give back to the people who have come, the PGP ones, is certainly high on my radar. So these are some calls that you have to make for yourself.
Yeah, and then you couldn't have done that in the first year because the requirements were different.
True.
But now that the priority list is changing, these are things that you want to focus on right now. Yeah.
But at every point you have trade-offs.
Yeah, and you have to keep analyzing, no? Because you cannot have it all. You can make 5 things happen. Keep shifting and reanalyzing those 5. So now a general question, basis what you've seen so far, the life that you've lived, what you would say are the top 20% things that you think you're doing right that are giving you the 80% of the results?
Consultants are big fans of Pareto. I can see that. But see, one thing which I think I have done decently well throughout my professional as well as academic journey is that I have tried to put people at the center of whatever I have made the decisions for. So be it choosing Tata Steel, be it doing an MBA, even the choice of consulting for that matter. I think of anything that you do from a perspective that it has to add value to the community. And I think part of it is coming from my time at Tata Steel, because it's such a company that puts community at the center of everything. And for me, honestly, the definition of success would be to, of course, achieve what you have set yourself to achieve. That's a very standard basic definition of success. But I think there are 2 other components to it. One is that you should be happy while you are at it. And secondly, it should benefit someone else in the world in a sustainable manner. So if you are able to have these 3 things, these 3 boxes tick, that's when you can genuinely say you're successful at that thing.
Good people being happy with it and giving out to community.
Yeah, achieving the metric or the target. Second is, of course,
being happy while
you're doing it. And third is
positive impact to the broader community.
Sustainably. It doesn't have to be a spike. You have to maintain that benefit that you have given. So I think that is one of the things that has worked in my favor, the 20%. Second, I would say it's probably coming from my time at NDA, whatever little I saw there, and even my time at BITS. When you have freedom and you combine it with discipline, That's when you really grow, because freedom gives you the chance to explore anything you want, but a disciplined sort of approach to what you want to do restricts you, kind of binds you to an agenda. The kind of impact that you want to make has to be in a systematic fashion. So your real growth comes in analyzing those trade-offs and making those choices for yourself. An MBA program, or for that matter many things in your personal life, are going to be about making decisions, and those decisions will have impact on others. To be a good business leader is to identify what is at stake for not just you but for others involved, and then of course you'll have the freedom to make the decision, but you have to be disciplined in your approach to make that decision so that the overall benefit of everyone is achieved. So if you have the right mix of freedom and restriction yourself, that is something I would say takes care of the 80% of the mess, if you have that clarity in your mind.
That's a very deep and thoughtful answer. I was expecting something like, I've studied well, I've done this right, but wow, you put so much thought into everything that you do. That's commendable. Okay, so something very different now. What is Paritosh right now hopeful about? What are you excited about in the future for?
Consulting in my summer internship was the first stint that I have. And it was phenomenal, to be honest. I loved the team that I got at BCG, and my manager was great. And a lot of what I'm doing in my second year is trying to emulate parts of him, like the way he managed his team, the way he managed himself. Is something I'm trying to emulate. My MDP was very good as a person. He was always ready to help and was always available. So I think a lot of these learnings that I've had from BCG, I'm excited to implement them while I'm living here. The point is, at IIM Bangalore, I have been trying to make sure that I'm able to implement these things to be better at managing myself and the things that I'm involved in. And more importantly, I'm excited about my full-time role at BCG, because it's certainly one of the companies I have deep respect for, not just because it's prestigious, but it is one of the firms that has really cracked what it means to bring impact for the clients. And through the clients, of course, when we say clients, for me, client actually does not mean a lot, but the customer of the client, the actual final impact is what matters to me. So I think BCG is it's a company that adds a lot of value, has a lot of customer focus, and that is where I feel a lot of exciting work is to happen in the next few years for me. So that's what I'm excited about.
You went very far ahead. No hopes or plans for your exchange term.
No, yeah, of course, exchange is something I'm looking forward to. But see, exchange, you might know, it's travel come learning experience. So as much as I'm excited about the learning part, travel is something I'm really looking forward to. I just hope I get to do
the things that
I've planned for myself, the itinerary that we have thought of executing. So yeah, I'll be going to France, and let's hope we make the best of this Europe trip for 3 months that we have.
Nice. So now coming back to a question that can be very helpful for your PGP ones, like you said, you want to give back. What do you think you did right when you were preparing your CV, and that you think helped you land the BCG internship? Because now the summer internship time is like so close. Everyone's making the best CV that they can. Any tips, pointers on those lines?
Yeah, I have very honest opinion on it. A lot of people say that the full stops and the commas and the bolded words matter, and the impact should be first or towards the end or whatever. Those are all not very important things. For me, the most important thing is, are you able to reflect yourself into the CV? Secondly, the real estate that your CV is, one A4 size page, are you utilizing it smartly? Are you packing the most information possible in the least amount of space that you have in a point? And are you making sure that it's readable? It's very easy to follow. The recruiters would not have a lot of time to look at your CV. So you have to try to make it as readable as possible while making sure that it's a reflection of you. So that's the broad idea about the CV. Probably should not fret too much about a word being here or there or the minor issues. the point of all those minor instructions which are given by the committees in the colleges and the seniors is to make sure that your resume is readable and has the impact that you want the recruiter to see. Basically, the idea of the CV is to give the recruiter reasons to recruit you. And that has to come through the points. So if you write it in a way that is reflecting you and in a way that puts the impact in the kind of work that you have done, reflects it in an impactful manner, I think that is enough. You use your space well, try to speak as much as possible about your work and the impact in limited space. I think you're good to go. You don't have to worry so much about the smaller aspects. I think the resume making exercise is more for the candidate than for the recruiters.
So as to re-examine everything that you've done, what has led up to this.
True, that is one part of it that helps you reflect and make sure that you have a good understanding of your own self while going into the process. But second part to it is for you to be confident when you're enrolling with that CV.
I have done so many things well in my life. This is what I bring, and I'm confident that I'll be
that I've created a good CV. What I mean by that is it gives the candidate a confidence to apply to a company. In the sense that if he has not worked on his CV enough, if they think that they have not worked on their CV well enough, it does not give them the confidence to apply to certain companies. So as much for the candidate as it is for the recruiter to have a look at a good CV.
I absolutely get the idea. I resonate with it. But what are the actionable points that you would give to someone like going ahead in the process?
So very simply put, have the power words used very wisely, have the impact in whatever bullet you're writing, say what you did and say what the impact of it was. Impact should ideally be in some form of metric that you tracked for that particular thing. If you do not have a metric, then definitely put some impact that tells that this was the result of your work, because companies want to look at impact. They want to see, if I recruit this person, what will it do for my business? So that is important. Of course, to be consistent in the format is something important. Just enhances readability. Make sure that you're including everything that is worth including. Do not miss out. It shouldn't happen that you realize later that this is something I could have put. You never know what points stand out in your profile and you get a shot at your dream company. So that is one. Of course, as I said earlier, use the space very judiciously. It's very limited real estate that you have. Try to pack in, you try to give as much reason to select you as possible in that limited space. So I think that is what I would say. Of course, very basic sanity things. Don't do grammar mistakes.
Spelling mistakes.
Don't do all those things. So that's a given. I'm guessing that should be taken care of. But other than that, these are some points.
So how did consulting come in the picture? You submit your CV, you landed up into consulting just because you got the shortlists, or you did not have any particular switch in mind? How did consulting happen for you?
So I was keen on exploring consulting even when I was at Tata Steel. So I read through quite a few things and had a word with the seniors from BITS and even at IIM Bangalore. So I came to understand that consulting is an exciting sphere. What I also realized during those interactions is that finance is probably not something I would want to do long term. Not just because I do not have a background in it. I tried to, explore it through certifications, through the various online material available. I came to understand that it's definitely something very useful for the business, but probably not something I would want to do throughout my life. So that being said, coupled that with the interviews with people who had been doing fin roles, I realized it's probably not the best suited for me. So that was out of the picture. Other than that, what remains in a typical MBA setup is the product roles, the consulting roles, and the general management roles.
Sales
and marketing roles. So out of these, of course, the rules keep on changing year on year, but during our time, the day one was consulting. So as a natural progression would have it, of course, you apply to all the companies, but the shortlist for consulting companies comes first, and these placements happen on day one. So the point was day zero, as you call it. But on day zero, if you want to go to some other domain, it's harder for you to miss out on all the shortlist that you have from the consulting firms. And also because I did not have any special preference for the other domains, I kind of naturally went for
You were
consulting.
open for exploration, and it was day zero. Happened for the best companies got you. Paritosh, one thing that really caught my eye when I was going through your LinkedIn profile is that you've done so many certifications and all from diverse topics, contemporary topics. So, how do you choose what certifications to do, and how much do you think they've had an impact on you personally and for you getting selected in an MBA college or your summer internship?
So about the certifications, my approach has been to take them up to learn something new about something that I have not explored enough, or something that I'm excited to know more about. That was the only motive, and honestly, I think they don't really matter so much in your, shortlist, or say even in the MBA selection. I'm not so sure for the certification that I have not done. I've heard that certain Fin related certifications do add a lot of value and weight to your CV. But for me, I think most of the learning in an MBA or outside of an MBA will come from the networks that you have, the interactions that you have. The certifications shall certainly add a level of theoretical know-how, but you can learn those things even without the certifications. And in the selection process, in the shortlist and all of those, I do not think they play a very big role. What you know out of as a result of those and how you put them to use into creating impact for the world is what matters more, and that should be the focus while you are approaching these certifications.
Paritosh, really thank you for entertaining this hour-long conversation, and you've answered all of my questions so honestly. Really grateful for you coming here. Any parting thoughts?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Riya. It's a pleasure for me because I have learned a lot from you while we were together at IIM Bangalore. And to be a part of this it's certainly a great experience. I would say to anyone watching this, we should all strive to be of value, in the sense that a lot of people in the world talk about problems because we are in a privileged position. If you're seeing this, you are in a privileged position, let's be honest. You can do a lot of things for the world. Try to be seeing problems and then try to solve those problems. A lot of people do not take that extra step to go ahead and solve it. Cribbing is easy. Getting things done in the real world is difficult. Try to make some positive impact in the world, because that is what all of us are here for. That's what makes life interesting, life meaningful. Otherwise, if you're doing things for your own self, not much fun there. But yeah, if you're able to do that, that is the real value add of any education that is provided to you so far, and whatever the society has given you, that should be the focus of whatever you do. Try to make the world better is what I would say. Wow. I mean, chota muh badi baat, but I think that should be at the focus of whatever we do.
Certainly, not chota muh badi baat, bahut kaam ki baat. And yeah, that certainly emulates what you are as a person, what you are trying to do with your life, and that's exactly what you're putting out to others. So thank you for that.